Okay, so this is the second video tutorial on how to use the Monash College error correction code. In the first tutorial we covered some of the major codes, which were wrong word, word form and tense. In this tutorial we're going to look at a few more that you might find appearing frequently in your written work. And these are wrong or missing article, plural singular confusion, word missing, and incorrect or missing punctuation. So looking at the first of these, wrong or missing article, so you'll know from your study of English that there are two articles in English, indefinite article and definite article. The definite article is the, and the indefinite article is a or an, depending on the first letter of the word that follows. So in the case of if the word has a consonant, you use a. If the word that follows begins with a vowel sound, you use an. Now the types of errors that are going to be identified, are when there's an article where there's not supposed to be an article, or where there's no article and there's supposed to be one, where the indefinite has been used in place of the definite, or the definite has been used in place of the indefinite, and where you've used an a instead of an or an instead of an a. Now the only error here that's not likely to be identified with this particular code is when you have used an article where there is not supposed to be one. In that case, your teacher is likely to just use the code that represents that a word needs to be taken out. But otherwise, for these others, you will have to use your knowledge of how the articles work to be able to make the appropriate correction. So I'll give you an example. Okay, so this is a sentence taken from students' writing. McLuhan's tetrad is used to analyse potential impact of these technologies. Now, if I was correcting this, I would put the error correction code for article here. So if this was your writing, you would need to consider which particular change to the use of articles needs to be made. So in this case, there is no article, so obviously an article is needed. You would correct it to McLuhan's tetrad is used to analyse the potential impact of these technologies. Okay, so looking at plural singular confusion, one thing you need to know is that this correction code applies to nouns and pronouns only. You'll be aware that verbs may have plural forms, but in most cases the plural forms may be the same as some singular forms. So if there's an error between a singular and plural verb, the error correction code used will be T for tense. So plural and singular applies to nouns and pronouns only. Now if you find the code SING indicating singular, this indicates that a plural has been used but that a singular was supposed to be used, so it needs to be changed to a singular. And PL for plural indicates that a singular has been used, but that a plural needs to be put in its place. So looking at an example here, reasonable price would help the company attract more customers. So if I was marking this, I would underline the word price, and I would put the code for plural above it. So if you were correcting this, you would see that price is singular and needs to be replaced with a plural. So in this case, you would change it to reasonable prices would help the company attract more customers. Okay, so this code indicates that a word is missing, but it doesn't necessarily indicate what type of word or what form of word needs to be put in. So you'll find that in a lot of instances the missing word is a preposition, and that can be fairly easily put in. However, the code can also indicate the absence of more than one word. So if you see this, it might be a question of coming up with connected words to locate the appropriate correction. And also, this correction code might be used in conjunction with another correction. So you might have a word that is incorrect, but it also needs to be combined with another word. These technologies must be tested before put into use. So that's where the error correction code will go. Now, in this case, you might need more than a single word to make the correction. So this is one example. These technologies must be tested before they are put into use, but that might not carry the exact meaning that you're going for. So this is another example. These technologies must be tested before they can be put into use. So just bear in mind when you see the word missing that it isn't necessarily a case of simply finding one word and putting it in there. You might need multiple words, so it's important to think about the grammar of the sentence to be able to make the appropriate correction. Okay, and so our last code, incorrect or missing punctuation. A lot of the time if you see this, it's because perhaps something simple like a comma needs to be used, or a full stop, or one needs to be swapped with the other. Those sorts of things that should be easy enough to correct. Sometimes this might apply to more complex forms. For example, if instead of a full stop you should use a colon or a semicolon, apostrophes, possessives, those sorts of things. Now, it can also be used to identify issues with capitalization. For example, if you've used a capital letter where you shouldn't, or you haven't used a capital letter where you should, P might be used because capitals is sometimes considered an issue of punctuation, and there isn't a specific code in the error correction code for capitalization, so you might find the P used for capitalization issues. And similarly, it might also be used if there's a spacing issue. For example, if you have a full stop at the end of a sentence but you don't have a space following it before the next sentence begins, the punctuation code might be used just to indicate that there's something wrong with the way you've used punctuation, because after a full stop there needs to be a space. So here's an example. Okay, also sales of home brand milk have increased in recent years. Now, for me to correct, I would put a P sign there. I'd also put it there and there. So in the case of the first, it's clear that there needs to be a comma following also. So it'll read, also sales of home brand milk have increased in recent years. But you may also notice that I've put the punctuation sign under home and brand. And you may conclude that this is because these are proper nouns and they need to begin with capital letters. And that's how I have corrected it. To summarize, here's a series of questions you can ask yourself when you encounter each of these correction codes. First, with articles. So you want to ask, is an article needed here? You want to ask, is it a definite or indefinite article that's needed? And if it's indefinite, you need to ask if the article is followed by a word starting with a vowel. For plural singular confusion, you just bear in mind that this applies to nouns and pronouns. And you just need to ask yourself, is this a change from singular to plural or a change from plural to singular? For word missing, you need to ask what type of word is needed, how many other words are needed, and do other words need to be changed also? And for punctuation, you just need to ask what kind of punctuation is the issue and what does it need to be replaced with? Or you can ask yourself, is this an issue of capitalization or is it an issue of spacing as well? So hopefully going through those will give you the understanding you need to be able to apply these codes in your written work, specifically your research drafts.